welcome into OutKick the show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I'm going on the road for a bunch of days tomorrow, so I wanted to go ahead and get a reaction show up. That Tennessee-Oklahoma game would never actually end. It ended up going for almost 4 hours. Even though there wasn't a lot of drama, I got takeaways from that. Michigan outlasts SC. We got overtime going on right now. Adam, will you keep me updated on what exactly goes on with Colorado and Baylor, I believe, in OT as I am talking to you right now? But I want to tell you, by the way, no shows Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday for OutKick. I'll be with Clay and Buck. I'll be on the road. I'll be back with you on Thursday with the normal OutKick show and with an OutKick gambling show with Kelly Stewart. But I want to tell you, Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With Prize Picks, you against the number. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Get hooked up right now. I'll give you a Prize pick on Thursday, and hopefully we're going to be able to come up with a winner there, especially because we get a free square with what's going on right now with Caleb Williams. All he has to do is throw for a yard. Prize Picks, best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds. Turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Get hooked up right now, too. You use the code OutKick, you get $50 when you put in $5 to make a play. Download the Prize Picks app today. That's code OutKick, $50 instantly when you play $5. Code OutKick, $5. When you play, you get $50 instantly. All right, let's talk about what we saw in the Tennessee-Oklahoma game. Before the season started, and you can do this for almost any team, but Tennessee has already played 2 of the 4 most dangerous games, according to Vegas, before the season started. Neutral site against NC State, and now on the road against Oklahoma in their SEC debut. Big picture, Josh Heupel goes back to Norman, Oklahoma, a place where he won a national championship, where he coached with a great deal of success, and he gets the win. It was ugly down the stretch. I'm going to dive into that in a moment. But this now means, if you're schedule watching, Tennessee hits the first bye week. There are double bye weeks for every team, sitting at 4-0. Gets 2 weeks to get ready for Arkansas, which will be another road game. Tennessee will have played in their first 3 road neutral games. And then Tennessee will come home with Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, and Mississippi State all in a row at home before they would go on the road against Georgia. Very good chance that Tennessee will be 5-0 with Florida coming to town. And I think based on how Florida's playing, very good chance Tennessee will be 6-0 with Alabama coming to town. Vols look like a playoff team. Now, blood bank hit. We lost a lot of close gambling bets today. I thought we actually had some pretty good picks out there on the board. Some numbers went against us late. I'll talk about the Michigan game. That game had no business going over. The Kentucky-Ohio game had no business going over. I think we should have gone over in Miami, South Florida, and we ended up losing by like a half point there or something similar to that. But Colorado now has, by the way, 38-31 lead in the first OT. Baylor now has the football. Tennessee has an elite defensive line. And the reason why I said blood bank guarantee was that defensive line is going to travel all year long. And with Jackson Arnold in the game, Tennessee absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage. Now, they bring in later freshman. I thought he made some plays. I thought he left his body on the line. I thought, credit to him, pretty much the game was already over by the time he got in because Tennessee had opened up a 16-point lead at the half and basically kind of nursed it the rest of the way. I didn't think offensively Tennessee played very well. Now, I do think Oklahoma has a pretty solid defensive team, but it never really felt like a very close game to me. It just felt like one that wouldn't end for most of the second half. Tennessee never really got the knockout punch. What did they go up 22-3? Maybe took a 19-point lead, but never really kind of put it away where you said, okay, we're into complete junk time. I think that'll actually benefit Tennessee going forward because it means everybody's going to be able to focus on Arkansas. Other side of the ball, Oklahoma doesn't have much of an offense. And I think the Sooners are going to struggle with the lineup that they gave them in year one in the SEC. So for me, Tennessee, anything less than 10-2 at this point is going to be a disappointing season. For Oklahoma, I think it feels like an 8-4 style football team in year one, and that's if they can start to get some of their issues at quarterback solved. At Auburn will be a mess. That will be an ugly, low-scoring game. Auburn, I'm looking at Oklahoma's schedule. Texas should handle Oklahoma, I think, fairly easy. South Carolina won't be easy, but I think Oklahoma should win that one. At Ole Miss, Oklahoma's going to lose. At Missouri, maybe they can give Missouri a run. Bama's going to beat Oklahoma, and we'll see what happens with LSU. But again, I think Oklahoma's now an 8-4 team. If you look going forward for Tennessee, only going to be an underdog probably in one game for sure against on the road against Georgia. Maybe you're an underdog at home a little bit against Alabama, but that's going to be close to 50-50. 10-2 in the SEC or 10-2 in the Big Ten with a couple of decent wins, I think is going to get you in the 12-team playoff. I already wrote out my 12-teamer. Let me see if I can pull it up. If it's in my email, I was already writing as the Tennessee-Oklahoma game was going on, and I do think that as you start to kind of break down exactly where things are going, here is my top 12 right now in the playoff. One of these teams is still playing, so I might have to adjust it. But my playoff 12 would be right now Texas, I'm projecting as the SEC champion, Ohio State as the Big Ten champ, Miami as the ACC champ, and Utah. I'll talk about that game here in a moment. Utah went on the road and controlled pace even on their third-string quarterback at Oklahoma State. I've got Utah as the team that is most likely to win the Big 12 championship. I've got Georgia as my 5 seed, Tennessee as my 6 seed, Alabama as my 7 seed, Ole Miss as my 8 seed. All of those are undefeated SEC teams right now. All of them would theoretically host home playoff games. Then I've got Penn State at 9, Oregon at 10, Kansas State at 11, and I've got UNLV as the non-power conference team. Memphis lost and Northern Illinois both lost today. Under review, by the way, Colorado Baylor field being stormed. Adam, what do you think? Give me your review. Did the ball get fumbled out of the back of the end zone? Is that an accurate way for the game to have ended, or is there some chaos scenario that's still in play there? Again, overtime underway in the Baylor-Colorado game. SEC power rankings. I've got Texas 1, Georgia 2, Tennessee 3, Alabama 4, Ole Miss 5, Missouri 6, Oklahoma 7, LSU 8, Texas A&M 9, Arkansas 10, South Carolina 11, Vanderbilt 12, Kentucky 13, Auburn 14, Florida 15, and Mississippi State 16. So now they're reviewing whether or not the ball was fumbled in overtime. Adam will let me know what happens there. The other big game of the day, there were, I would say, 3 or 4 official big games. One of them actually happened on Friday. Congratulations to Illinois getting the win on the road at Nebraska in overtime to go to 4-0. Michigan does not have a quarterback, and they got the win over USC despite only throwing for 32 yards. I felt like both teams gave this game away, but in particular USC, which allowed an 89-yard drive for the go-ahead score, even though they knew basically that Michigan couldn't throw the football at all, and even though they had effectively dominated the entire second half. I don't think it makes a difference right now for Michigan who the quarterback is because they just don't have one. And whether it's Orgy, whether it's the other kid, Davis Warren, I think is his name. The fact that Michigan in year one with Sharon Moore went in with these two guys at quarterback and didn't go find somebody in the transfer portal who was better is staggering to me. Michigan is not a playoff contending team. They may make the playoffs if everything went perfect with their schedule. The problem is you can't win with that caliber of quarterback play. And so SC, will see whether they continue to develop, how they break down. But that win over LSU doesn't look as impressive given how mediocre LSU has looked this season, even though they got the win LSU did today over UCLA. Other win, Kyle Whittingham has built an incredible culture at Utah. I think the Big 12 is going to come down to either Utah, either Oklahoma State. Maybe if you think about the Big 12 process, maybe you think that that Kansas State is going to be the team that comes out of the Big 12. My big issue with the playoff in general is I don't like the idea of a Big 12 champ automatically getting one of the playoff byes, because I don't think any of the Big 12 champs, we'll wait and see to be certain, but is going to be anywhere near one of the top four teams at the end of the season in the overall playoff rankings. Mizzou is still highly ranked. You heard I did not have them in my playoff right now. I think Mizzou was very, very fortunate to get past Vanderbilt. I do not believe that they have elite right now resume. Now they're 4-0. Credit to them for getting to 4-0. The schedule is not brutal, but Mizzou to me does not look like the caliber of team that Tennessee has, that Texas has, that Georgia has, that Alabama has, or that Ole Miss has. Those five so far, granted Ole Miss hasn't really been challenged yet either, but those five look like to me a different caliber of performer. Have we gotten an official ruling? Yes, Colorado wins 38-31. So an exciting game there for everybody that has been tuned in and watching that one. Now, I ran through all my playoff 12, my SEC power rankings. Again, waiting to see officially what happens with Kansas State and whether they beat BYU. Right now, to be fair, BYU is up 10-6 as we get close to halftime. And one of the challenges, honestly, is a lot of teams have already lost. We're not even through the month of September yet. And if you go look, when I was doing my OutKick top 10, it's actually getting difficult to figure out who are the teams that are reliably really good football programs. Look, Ohio State hasn't been challenged. They took care of Marshall. Clemson obliterated NC State, and the expectation was that NC State was going to be a contender in the ACC. They've now been smoked by Tennessee and smoked by Clemson, and the Georgia win over Clemson may end up looking way better. That's the best thing on Georgia's resume so far. Fans stormed the field, I'm told, at Colorado before the game was over. How in the world are you storming the field, by the way, with a win over Baylor? Not a shot at Baylor, just it's crazy in general. Kent State continues Murderer's Row, goes on the road in Knoxville last weekend, comes in and gets absolutely boat raced by Penn State. We've talked about Michigan. I felt like SC gave that game away. I felt like Michigan gave that game away. LSU, not sold on at all the Bayou Bengals, but we said that the crazy thing about LSU's schedule right now is even though they're just kind of wobbly, they should beat South Alabama, although no how many points South Alabama may score in that game. And then they'll get a bye week, and then Ole Miss comes down to LSU on that big game of game days on October 12th. So LSU fans, if they can be sitting at 4-1 when Ole Miss comes to town, they can get back in the good graces. Notre Dame, we know they lost to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois came back and lost. So Notre Dame got the win over Miami of Ohio. Louisville, kind of sneakily, like last year when Louisville caught a lot of people by surprise, gets the win over a much improved Georgia Tech team. But Louisville kind of sneaking around there at the top 20. Mentioned Northern Illinois getting the loss. Utah dominated for much of the day against Oklahoma State. Finds a way to go on the road in Stillwater and win. I talked about Missouri. I watched that game. I felt awful for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had a chance to win that game, gets into overtime, holds Missouri second overtime to a field goal, and then just shanks a 31-yard field goal in what feels like the most Vanderbilt ending imaginable. Miami, I was wrong on this one. I thought that South Florida would really give them a game. Early on, they did. First half, it was a challenge. Then Miami pulled away. I know Miami whipped Florida, but they are really kind of rounding into shape. Virginia Tech is not good. Credit to Rutgers getting the win over Virginia Tech. But Miami gets Virginia Tech on Friday. So that game's going to sneak up on a lot of people. Then they go to Cal, should be a win. And then they go to Louisville on the 19th of October. But you start looking at Miami's schedule. Miami doesn't have a ranked team left on their schedule other than at Louisville. So, again, lots of things can happen. There are undefeated teams that may be underrated. Duke's 4-0, for instance. But I think it's very much would be a huge upset if Miami is not in the ACC championship game based on how things are going so far. By the way, shout out James Madison. How about James Madison going in and hanging 70 on North Carolina? That game was early. Texas A&M gets the win over Bowling Green, and Ole Miss handles Georgia Southern. Texas, Arch Manning's official starting debut. I haven't even gone in and looked at Arch's numbers yet. I know he had a couple of touchdown passes. Okay, threw 2 picks, throws for 258 out there. So anyway, I've got Texas still as my number 1 overall team. Ole Miss continues to not really play anybody. I know they had to go on the road against Wake Forest last week. Kentucky comes down to Oxford next weekend. Maybe a little bit of a challenge. Kentucky's got an okay defense. I think Ole Miss will handle that one. Then on the road against South Carolina. Before that game I told you about where they have to go on the road against LSU. I feel better about Ole Miss being able to handle Oklahoma than I did before. Georgia has to go there. Anyway, lots of moving parts. I'm going to go right to starting 11 now. I've got a morning flight that I've got to hit. But let me close with a couple of additional thoughts on Tennessee. And I'm going to put this in my column. Basically, since Tennessee last made the SEC title game in 2007, there's been a lot of disappointment on Rocky Top. There have been little blips where you thought, hey, maybe Tennessee's going to come back. Maybe they'll find a way to kind of get things right. It never really has happened. 2022 was joyful, but it was so unexpected that it was as if it kind of emerged out of nowhere. And the question was that sort of a blip on the radar, an aberration, or had Josh Heupel built something really important and sustainable at Tennessee in terms of a return to excellence? I think, based on how this season has started, there is the potential that this could be the best Tennessee football team since all the way back in 2001. Which might have been the most talented Tennessee team Phil Fulmer ever had. He won the national title in 98, but if you ask Phil Fulmer for the team that he thought was his best in terms of just stacked with talent, 01, I don't think this Tennessee team is as stacked with talent as the 01 team was, but I do think Nico has a Cam Newton-like quality about him. And what do I mean by that when I analyze this Tennessee football team? I mean, if you remember Cam's national title team in 2010, Cam was paired with Gus Malzahn, and the offense that they put in got better and better each week. Tennessee wasn't that good on offense today. They were still good enough to go on the road and win a game against double digits in Norman, which is a very tough place to win. They'll have to be a better offensively, maybe. We'll see against Arkansas. The defense was able to carry them. Cam Newton got better and better each week, and that team was firing on all cylinders by the time we got to late October, early November, such that Cam was able to come back from a 24-point deficit on the road at Bryant-Denny Stadium. I was there for that performance. A lot of you were as well. I think Nico has that ability. If you saw the laser he threw to Dante Thornton for a touchdown, this can be a very, very explosive team. They didn't show much of it today, but they got up, were comfortable, didn't really show a lot. Couple of turnovers. Offensive line has got issues they need to work out. Starting left tackle didn't make the trip. But again, Nico could be Tennessee's version of Cam, except they get him for 2 years. They've got to keep him healthy. They got to keep him getting better week to week. But I think, here's a prediction for you. If Nico keeps playing, he's going to have a couple of 5-touchdown days where people say, holy cow, this guy is really something. That's why you should be really optimistic. That's why I'm optimistic as a big Tennessee fan and, frankly, as a big Tennessee NIL donor. I think Tennessee has won 2 of the 4 games that I said they needed to be able to win to put themselves in contention to make the playoffs. If they can split, I really think this, if they can split Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee's certainly in the playoff then, but I think an 11-1 Tennessee team would have a very good chance to potentially be in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Again, long way to go. Got to stay healthy. A lot of different moving parts out there. But it's a great day to be wearing orange, as I am today. Go Big Orange. Big win. Again, I'll be back on Thursday with a show. OutKick 6-pack is up. I'll share it tomorrow morning. I'm headed out of town for the next several days. Appreciate all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. This has been OutKick the show. College football special Sunday edition because I'm not going to be back with you tomorrow. And I'll see all of you on OutKick the show on Thursday. Go Big Orange. Starting 11 will be up early tomorrow morning. See y'all.